to have you back, and if you're just joining us, well, welcome to our election studio. Now, today we'll be talking about herdsmen, the return of herdsmen, and how government is supposed to be handling security issues. Now, reports reaching us say that between January and June 2018, no less than 1,300 people were killed from herdsmen and farmers clashes, and at about 300,000 were also displaced. We'll be looking at all of these and more pertinent issues. Marianne, please introduce our guest for today.
Of course, we have joining us Dixon Osagie. He is a security consultant. It's good to have you, Mr. Dixon. And of course, we have Peter Egbidion. He is also a security consultant. It's good to have you. Of course, we're going to start off with the recent reports of herdsmen clashes, which has happened back to back. One was reported 21 hours ago. And another one has also happened. And one would think that, you know, after the whole 2018 and the drama that came with, you know, the issue, even though certain people still say that the president is yet to address that situation personally, one would have thought that it was a thing of the past until, you know, it raised its ugly head again. How do we deal with this situation?
I believe, first of all, that it's going to require the political will to do what is needed. Many people on the ground in affected states in Nigeria believe that somehow the antagonist, or I don't want to call the name of the group, especially Miyetti Allah, it's believed that they have a soft spot for the president, and they believe that they will receive some covering from him. And again, the affected communities also believe that that is the case. So it's going to require the political will to do what is right, so that it's clear there's no favoritism, and that the troops who will be called into action will be given the free hand to do what they ought to do. Let me pass it on to you as well.
Okay, well, it's a worrisome situation because looking at their coming back again is really worrisome. But eventually, maybe they went for election, and
it's possible.
And they are back for business. Well, however, it's not a good thing, because I personally was born up in the north. I grew up in the north, and most of my friends were Fulanis. I was actually born in Maiduguri. I grew up in Sokoto State. I grew up in Zaria, and all my lifetime I've made friends with these guys. The speed and momentum in which they converted from that peaceful Fulani to conflict guys is really giving me cause to worry.
But Osagie, I'm sorry to cut in. There are people, especially those of us who are politically correct, you know, that say that not every Fulani is a herder, or is a killer, or is a rustler, because you know that there's a difference between the herdsmen and the cattle rustlers, you know. So there's a difference, and there's a difference between the farmers who are being attacked and who also have reprisal attacks. So they're saying there's no need to stereotype that group of persons. Even though they're nomadic in nature, you shouldn't stereotype it and call it, you know, Fulani herders. Herdsmen. Yes.
Well, if you examine the conflict, this conflict has a political nature to it. It has an economic nature to it. It has a religious nature to it. It also has an identity or a tribal nature to it. So part of what is causing this influx of herdsmen who are, whether we like it or not, of the Fulani stock to a large extent, is because of what we call resource use conflict. Basically, in the places where their cattle could graze before, desertification has occurred. The desert is pushing back green land, green vegetation, and then they are migrating towards places where there is vegetation for their cattle to feed on. And of course, this thing is not limited to Nigeria, although 90% of the attacks, according to the Global Terrorism Index, in the last 3 years in this region, West African region, from Ghana, Sierra Leone, even Mali, most of them have happened in Nigeria. So you have a lot of them migrating towards Nigeria because of the rich, arable land we have here that produces great feed for their livestock. I see the fact that some of these people who are coming from outside Nigeria also are able to access Nigeria because there are treaties that Nigeria has with bodies like ECOWAS. There's a protocol on the free movement of persons across the region. So because of that, there's a limitation to how we cannot call them Fulanis, although they're migrating from that area, part of Africa. So I believe that even though we don't mean harm when they are described like that, the truth is that if a Nigerian is found abroad doing something, they'll say he's a Nigerian, whether we like it or not. So we don't care whether he's Akwa Ibom or Yoruba, he's going to be called that name. I understand the fact that these stereotypes can cause more harm than good, but in identifying the cause of the problem, we need to identify it from its roots. And the roots is that a lot of these guys who are migrating across West Africa come from the Fulani region.
Okay, now let's look at the presidency or the government of the day and their disposition, their stance on this situation. Now, not too many people are impressed with how the president and his team, security team, have addressed this situation. That's the farmers' herders crisis. First and foremost, we had the Boko Haram that was taken back, and then some would say, well, we could actually quote the president right by saying Boko Haram was technically defeated. But we've seen the spread of insecurity move away from not just the northeast and spread around across the north. But now, what would you expect from the president in his approach to dealing with this level of insecurity when we are talking about having conversations that will yield good engagement so that those areas can be saved? Because having 300,000 people displaced, 1,300 people killed, that was just between January and June last year. So multiplying that by 2, we have over 2,600 of the population, at least, those recorded. So now we have the president coming in. By May 29, is going to be the next president. What should he be doing or thinking about?
Well, I was trying to arrive at the point before Mary Ann interjected. Yeah, I was trying to give you a philosophical background of the Fulani guys, and you came in with a stereotype. But however, security professionals, we tried not to classify them as Fulanis because there is no competent law court that has pronounced that judgment that these guys are truly involved in XYZ activities, because if you do that, we'll be engaging in racial sabotage. That might be regarded as a racial sabotage. But as rightly says, the herders are farmers' clashes. The presidency has not done enough to it. I listened to the interview granted to by the president during the candidate
with Kadaria Ahmed.
With Kadaria, yeah, thank you. And he was asked that question. I needed an answer. I needed an answer from the president. He never answered. His only statement was that there was a grazing bill that was released 1970 stuff, 70 something or what.
That we should go back to.
That they should go back to that grazing bill. I was disappointed by that response because as a president of this country, the number one duty by the Constitution is the protection of human lives and properties. I expected the presidency to attack this incident with speed and momentum because...
Would you say it's intentionally turning a blind eye to this?
I will agree, it's intentionally turning a blind eye to that because I have not seen him come on board to publicly arrest this situation. Because for a president to come on air and says that the Fulani has freedom of movement because he was speaking about the grazing bill. He never even cared about the human lives that were cut short in the Benue attack. He never made mention of that.
There are people who have said that this issue of grazing, open grazing, has been a very touchy subject over the years. And this is not just in Nigeria, neighboring countries, Niger, Ghana. In fact, Ghana has a high number of Hausa Fulani community. But in Nigeria, we have a reference point. There have been people who have said, let's have, private grazing areas, have your cattle ranches, For example, there's a Budu cattle ranch. The president himself has his own private ranch where the cows are not moving aimlessly in Daura. Why is it so difficult? And then again, there's also the analogy that it is a private business. It should not be getting in the way of people who are also doing their private businesses. So how are we not getting to a place of compromise or understanding or having a consensus of sort on how to deal with this? Is it such rocket science?
You are very correct. What went wrong was that the Fulanis then never took advantage of the 1978 Land Use Act. Because at that period of time, they were supposed to have taking advantage of that Land Use Act, get their own ranch across the nation. Because the Constitution permits any one of us to own a land in any given area in this country. So they never took advantage of that. They were just moving around from one place to the other, from one place to the other. If peradventure they have taken advantage of that Land Use Act as at then, they would have had a lot of ranches, like the Obudukatu Ranch. You know that very well. Other ranches, the president, as you earlier said, this is a private business. You cannot come and invade my own privacy with your private business. Whatever the case may be, if they want to pass in whatever grease be or whatever the case may be, if they are coming to acquire a land in Lagos, they should cut out a land for them. If they are coming to acquire a land in my state, Edo State, they should cut out a land for them. Go and get your survey plan, get your certificate of occupancy, then do whatever you want to do because it's your personal business. But don't mess up the environment. I flew into Abuja last 3 months, and on the major highway, I saw these guys moving with cows. I begin to wonder if the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria covers those cows. Because like me, I love goat meats. So if you are using cow to intimidate me, I will not find that happy enough. So what I expected the presidency to have done, let me give you for instance now. I went on patrol one night while I was the chief security officer for an organization, and I met my own brother from the same hometown. He was smoking on duty in a hotel at midnight, 2 a.m. He went to the pen floor and hid himself. So I traced the smoke, and I got there, I saw him smoking. And I asked him, what are you doing here? He works in my organization. Now, what did I do? Immediately, I dismissed him on the spot. We are from the same place. I dismiss him. I'm setting what? Deterrence measures. Now, if you cannot deal with your own people, the headers, or whatever the case may be, who do you think you can deal with? We should have that deterrence measure in place. Because from my own opinion, truth be told, the president has not really pay more attention to this.
I want to add to what you said. I remember, I think it was in 2016 when this thing was getting to a head. We saw the president put on military fatigues, and then he went to, I think it was Zamfara, basically set up a task force to address this issue. But we didn't see anything after that. And the statements and the actions that have come since that time, we haven't seen any corresponding action to show that this government is really committed to dealing with the issue.
Well, in 2017 into 2018, I'll tell you, the chief of defense staff had said that it's not necessarily what we think is the problem that is the problem, that it's those states that have the anti-grazing bills that are causing this uprising.
But if you said that, I want to add to it. Each state is empowered by the Constitution of this country to make laws for its territory, for its jurisdiction. Anybody coming from outside of that state ought to abide within the law, or ought to abide by the laws of the states in which that law has been passed. So for him to say that, he's probably not cognizant of how much power the states' assemblies have to promulgate laws into effect for the people. Anybody who's coming in from a different state will abide with the laws of Lagos State, for instance, including taxing, registration. So when you come from a different place into a place where there's law and order, you have to abide by those rules. So if he's saying that, then he's being clever by half.
Because what I'm even amazed is that I wonder why we're paying more attention to this grazing bill. Is cow the only animal we have in this in this country? Is it because it's a particular region that's cater for those animals also? But I'm disappointed in the sense that we have intelligence gathering. I have intelligence on all these issues. So leave what the chief of defense staff is saying, because he will not come and say the headers or the Fulani people are really the people causing these mayhems. Because I don't think that in a village, the villagers will come and kill themselves. Are you with me? We saw what happened in Benue, where some reverend fathers were murdered in cold blood. We saw where people were murdered in cold blood. And what happened is this: when these guys are coming to act, I don't know whether they are planning it with the security agencies. The response factors our security agencies are applying is very slow. And that is why, at the end of the day, our security agency hold Nigerians an apology, because we cannot continue to be losing human lives as if we are losing cows. Even the cows that are dying are not even up to the number of human beings that have died during this period of time. So when you equate cows and human beings, which one is more of an asset?
Now, adding to what you just said now, some of these individuals are arms or ammunition wielding individuals.
Yes,
they go about with arms, rape, kill, and maim, and a whole lot more. So what level of legislation do you expect this time around from the 9th Assembly, as it's going to be formed and going to go into action? Because if the president's disposition is nonchalant, as you've described, then our legislative arm has to ensure that they create bills and a whole lot more, and the judiciary backs that action.
There should be
and adding to that as well, because the ICC last December said it was still contemplating and examining how much of a menace this situation is and whether or not its jurisdiction will be able to tackle the farmer herders crisis. Now, what should we be doing at home? Not waiting for the International Criminal Court to take action.
If we want to wait for International Criminal Courts, or International Court of Justice, or International Criminal Court, ICC, yeah. If we are waiting for them, everybody will be erased in this country. We don't have to wait for them. The truth is that we have to start putting in factors in place. Now, they should carry out, I expect the government to carry out a national disarmament program, in the sense that every state, if you are with arms and ammunition illegally, without a permit or license, you are supposed to submit that. And when you look at the history of crime in Nigeria, you will discover that the government of General Yakubu Gowon failed us after the Civil War. And any country that goes to war never recovers. There's always a problem. Check Libya, check other countries. Because after the Civil War, the government as at then, they were more interested in one Nigeria. They were not interested in disarmament. Yeah. So the DDR process of conflict resolution was not properly melted. There was good disarmament, this mobilization, but there were no proper disarmament. And that was where we have the likes of Ishola and aka Rob and Kill, Anini and Co. Yeah. And after the Civil War, arms started spreading across. So as I'm talking to you now, there are a large number of arms within the wrong guys. Are you with me? So the National Assembly should take this very serious. They should pass a bill, and whoever is in possession of any arms and ammunition should submit it to the nearest police station. That is one. Then secondly, our security agencies need to come on board and draw a plan. Because from what is happening in our nation now, I'm speaking from a security point of view, we are just being responsive. We are not reactive. We are not proactive. Because if our security agencies are proactive, before these guys might move from one place to another, because it takes movements. For example, if I want to advance to an enemy, I have taken an advance before. Before I advance to an enemy location, you are sitting there, from here to your place is 5 meters. Before I advance to your place to curtail you and dissolve you, there should be a response team from the nearest police station. But you discover that after 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, there is no response team. Nobody cares. We are just dying like chicken in this country because the value of human lives as far, in fact,
would
has
you
been
blame
reduced to
this
normal.
trend on the fact that we've not necessarily seen any strong prosecution of these individuals? Yes, we hear the news that they've killed XYZ number. We hear the news that they've raped, they've destroyed, and a whole lot more. But we never hear the news of prosecution and the law taking its course on these individuals. And
I agree.
Investigation is really poor, because when we question where their ammunition come from, because they are well armed, aren't our prosecutors supposed to do all of those?
Let me add the criminalistic elements to this issue. Of course, there's proliferation of arms, not just light arms, from across, even from the Mali region, when there was uprising, the Tuareg uprising that the French government also helped to quell. You had the Libya issue that led to collapse of that country's government. You had ISIS taking over. So this entire region, you have people who are flocking across. Also, some of them have been indoctrinated to join the extremist groups. So you have Boko Haram liaising with ISIS or ISWAP, and when I have the ISIS in the West African province. So you have these guys across this region, and again, people have been also lured to take part in this this armed movement by religion. So you have some who are doing this out of the idealistic feel of religion, of the jihad, and then you have those who are doing this from the elements of just people who are just criminals. They want to be able to continue wreaking havoc across the country. Then you have them migrating across to our country, and the government seems to be blind to the things that are happening. Go ahead.
I'll tell you something. In 2018 also, the Sultan of Sokoto, Alhaji Saad Abubakar, did make mention of the fact that these people who are coming into the country, in fact, he said that these people that we call herders are not necessarily from the north, that they're from out of the country. And this was my question. If we are a country that has sovereignty, why can we not guard against these things from happening? And if this were to be in America, let's take, for example, America is the golden child, for example. you cannot go into America, whether you're Mexican and you legally enter the country, and you kill these amounts of people and nothing is done. And we just do not bat an eyelid.
That's where we're headed. And it got to a point where during the investigations, there was a task force set up by the government of, I think it was Kaduna State, and similarly within that region, headed by General Agwai. And it was discovered that the governor of Kaduna State had made payments to some of these men within that region, some of these headsmen, to stop coming into Nigeria to kill. Typically,
why pay them?
That sort of thing should not be done by a state governor. And you shouldn't even pay them, because paying them, it not only legitimizes their movement, it gives them more money to procure arms. Those sort of payments should have been made, if at all made, should have been made with the assent of the, not just National Assembly, but also the National Security Advisor. So for a governor to do that on his own calls into question the way the security
I'm sorry, I'm confused. Why should any government, whether you're the National Assembly, why should anybody give consent to people who are killing human beings because of animals? Why should that accent be given? Again, I want to ask you a question about arms that kept coming into the country. In 2018 alone, we had two. One was intercepted when he had gotten into town by some soldiers who were smart enough to notice that the man who sat in front, dressed as a police officer, was not necessarily a police officer, but he had gotten past customs. The other one was caught at the port. It was a ridiculous amount of guns. And these are the ones that we have seen. We do not know the ones that have come in. So the question is, who's paying for these guns to come in? Why are these guns coming in? And why are these guns ending up in the hands of even people who are supposed to be just nomads?
Yeah, when you ask who are paying for these guns and who are importing these things, they are conflict entrepreneurs. They are conflict entrepreneurs. Their own business is to come and destabilize the state, take advantage of our vulnerabilities, and tap what we want to tap, and tap our resources, like the Zamfara incident that is happening, the gold mine and every other thing. Now, the Nigerian custom must understand something, because the last time I came here, I made us to understand that the primary purpose of the Nigerian custom is not to make money. The primary purpose is to protect the citizens from internal aggressions. When I talk from external aggressions, when I say external aggression, I'm talking about narcotics, I'm talking about arms and ammunition, and they should carry out an effective interdictions. You know, when you arrest such arms and ammunition coming in illegally, what do? At the end of, you don't even, by rule of engagement, when you intercept such kind of arms, you're supposed to burn them off. That's what we call interdiction. You need to set them ablaze, burn them off. The government should not take over the arms and ammunition, because I have not really seen any effective interdiction taking place through our custom guys. But what we need to understand is this: our security agency, they are doing their best. They are failing us. When I say they are doing their best, as in they are at using their usefulness, but failing us in the sense that they need to sit up, come on board. They need to be on top of the game. Because I see no reason why arms and ammunition will pass through our national borders, get into Nigeria, and they're not using those arms and ammunition to go and kill cows. They're using it to go and kill human beings. Is it because human lives no longer has value? That's the question I'm asking myself. Because when you put these human lives and 1 billion cows, there's no equation. So what the government needs to do is that our security agency, I don't know if you are listening, our security agency, they will be asked a question, because this country, what is happening in Nigeria, if it happens in 1 or 2 other countries, the country will be in furnace, the country would have been ablaze by now, because we have pushed God so much to the wall, in the sense that we just believe that anybody can die any day, anytime, and anywhere.
We should pray, they've done what they can do. And I want to say this, that I think the fact that some of the arms that we've seen discovered have taken place from the ports. So evidently, if there's going to be entry points via sea, by virtue of the ISPS code that governs maritime operations across the world, it will be easy to mop up some of those things that come in. However, you have the land borders from the north, from the Middle Belt, going upwards into the other parts of Africa, where those places are incredibly porous. There are over 1,300 access points, and not all of them can be manned. Of course, our paramilitary agencies are underfunded, they are undermanned, and they don't have the political will. They don't have the will of even. I remember when they summoned the head of the customs to the Senate, and he refused to appear. So those sort of things give the officers the impunity to do.
No, he refused to appear because
in uniform. He was told to.
What happened was that he's a retired
colonel.
army officer. He was the former military administrator of Kaduna State.
Yes.
So when he retired, the government of the state, President Buhari himself, His Excellency, made him the head of custom. You understand? That is to say that the most senior officer in custom will report to that guy. And when he was about to come and brief the Senate, they said you need to, because professionally you cannot come to the Senate as a security agency on mufti. They said you put on uniform. So is he going to put on a custom uniform? And he's looking at it as, how will I put on the number one dress in this country, the uniform, the Nigerian Army uniform, and thereafter I want to go and put on custom uniform, and he refused. That is disobedience to particular orders.
But then those things should have been considered in the light of, you know, when the president was trying to, you know, pick him as the head of customs. He should have considered that. An army man would not want to wear that. These things should be considered because there's a clash.
That is a calculated error because I see no reason. I know him very well. The colonel in question, I know him very well. When I was passing out, he was the guest of honor 1998 at my personal parade. Then he was a lieutenant colonel also, I can't remember. Yes, it's Lieutenant Colonel.
Okay, gentlemen, before we wrap up conversation in less than 2 minutes, I'd like to have your thoughts on what sort of engagement we should also have with some groups who say they can actually have engagements or talks that would yield proceeds. Now, the Gan Allah Fulani Development Association of Nigeria, that's GAFDAN, assured that if given the chance, yes, and necessary support, they will be able to put an end to the protracted herders-farmers crisis. Mieti Allah, GAFDAN, what level of engagement should we be having with these individuals?
They are insisting that they want to be given land in areas where they have no rights or title deeds to the land. That tact alone, that approach will ensure that any leeway given to them to try and get solutions done will not bring solutions we're looking for. We need the government to man up and do what they ought to do. Our security agencies should step up to the plate. You know, their loyalty shouldn't be directly to the presidency. It should be to the Nigerian people. Until we have men in our forces who think like that, I doubt that these groups that we're talking of will be able to give solutions to the problem. So
looking at GAFDAN and Mieti Allah, I wonder where they came from. Are you telling me that these people owns Nigeria at their palms? We don't need, you see, when we start giving these guys familiarity complex, thinking that, hey, you guys can do it, Nigeria will be in trouble because more groups will continue to emerge.
All right, I want to have this conversation on and on and on, but we have to go for a short break. All right, when we come back, we're still talking about more issues as we gear up for the elections on Saturday. Stay tuned.